Time rushes on.
Okay, this meeting is called to order. I'd like to start with the public comment on closed session. Okay, seeing no public comment on closed session, we will go ahead and close public comment, and we will move into closed session. Okay, this meeting is called to order. Open session. I'd like at this time to report out on closed session. Keith Lemieux.
Sure. The board met in closed session to discuss the items except for the litigation items identified on the agenda. The board received a report from district. I take it back. They also discussed the litigation item. But we will be taking that item up again at the end. They received reports from staff. No reportable action took place. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the report.
Thank you. At this time, we, if you'll follow me with the Pledge of Allegiance. Face flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And just a brief moment of silence. Okay. Next, we'll have a roll call.
Vice Chair Rotora.
Here.
Chairman Heyman.
Present.
Director Peters.
Here.
Director Vallejo.
Present.
Director Itmeyer.
Here.
Commander Peter Benson.
Here.
Thomas Bukowskis.
Here.
Okay, next we will move to public comments. This time is reserved for the public to address the board about matters not on the agenda. No action will be taken on non-agenda items unless authorized by law. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Caller, go ahead.
Yes, my name is John Kersey. I'm the Community Planning Liaison Officer for Naval Air Weapons Station China Lake. And I just want to make comment in reference to the Capital Corps report from last month, and specifically in regards to the Readiness and Environmental Protection Integration Program, or REPI. That program is not intended to fund infrastructure. That is in accordance with DoD guidance. Also, all projects are initiated at the installation level. And as the manager of the REPI program for NAS China Lake, those projects would be submitted via myself. Finally, they did show the dollar amounts for the entire funding of the REPI program. I do want to emphasize that those dollar amounts are spread out between all of the branches of the military, and that percentage is not consistent from year to year. So how much the Navy would get is a very large question mark annually. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Caller, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Renee Westerlusk, and I just wanted to bring it to the attention of the GA board that the communication and engagement plan that's on the website needs to have some updates to it because it doesn't have an accurate listing of state government and federal government elected officials that represent us. So that needs to be updated. It's pages 9 and 10. And it's the communication engagement plan for the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Okay, seeing no further public comment, we will move on to item number 6 on the agenda, the consent agenda. This is approving minutes of the board meeting February 10th, 2021. A. B is approval of resolution number 02-21 appointing Charlotte Baldwin as TAC representative for the U.S. Navy DoD liaison. C is approve expenditures. C1 is $1,000 to Brown Armstrong extraction fee. C2, $6,660 Waterwise Consulting Prop 1 grant STAC, and C3 is $23,278.75 to the California Rural Water Association Prop 1 SDAC. Do any members of the public wish to pull any of these items? And any member of the board members wish to pull any of these items? Okay, hearing none, we will look for a...
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Vice Chair Rotora,
Aye.
Chairman Heyman,
Aye.
Director Peters,
Aye.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Itnire.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to item 7, board consideration and adoption of resolution 03-21, readopting and amending the bylaws to reflect change of address. This will be presented by Keith Lemieux and Ron Strand.
Sure. You have a memo currently, resolution currently before you to change the location of the principal place of business of the Groundwater Authority from the current address, which is the Water District, to a new address, which is the city. The reason this is in the form of a resolution is that we have to change the bylaws in order to make this change. The reason we want to make the change is that we've now hired an independent manager in the form of RGS, and RGS has decided that they would like to lease space at the city's facility as an ongoing address in order to take advantage of some of the amenities there. That also means that if this is approved, then RGS and the city will negotiate a lease between them for use of one office on a occasional basis, not a daily basis, and the use of a meeting room or conference room for occasional conferences. So that concludes the report, unless there's any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to bring it to public comment. Do we have any public comment on item 7?
Okay, seeing no public comment, we'll bring it back to the board for comment. Director Itmeyer,
No comment.
Director Peters,
No comment here.
Director Vallejo,
No comment.
and Director Retord, no comment. I have no further questions myself either, so we'll bring it to the board for...
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll move we adopt the resolution.
I think we had a motion already, so if you'd like
Oh, we
to
do have-
second it.
I didn't hear it, sorry. Do we have a second?
We have a motion, but you can second
I'd be
it.
happy to second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Vice Chair Rotora,
Aye.
Chairman Heyman,
Aye.
Director Peters,
Aye.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Itmeyer.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to item 8, board consideration and approval of GSP plan projects. Project number 1, surface percolation replenishment and pilot demonstration. This will be presented by Steve Johnson and Steve Reich.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Chairman Heyman, and the board, and certainly all the stakeholders and interested parties. I think I'm on, so I'm off the mute. One quick comment on the comment we received from Renee Westolusk is that communications plan was prepared by the PAC, so we might discuss at a later time. We can discuss sending it back to the PAC for maybe the update that's needed. Give some responsibilities back to the PAC, which they've been asking for. So we can take care of that. Now, agenda item number 8, basically the percolation study. There is a scope budget schedule, kind of a proposal in the actually provided late in the board packet to all the board members and out to the public. There's also a written staff report, and there is a PowerPoint. Steve Reich, our hydrogeologist and geologist, you all know Steve. He's going to present the PowerPoint and walk through it and take questions. Just a quick brief on this. This has been through a draft, the scope budget and the schedule. This has been through a draft both with the staff team and with the TAC. We got some very good comments from several people. Very knowledgeable in the basin. We've acknowledged the knowledge that is available in this basin for some time. The one clarification I wanted to make about this potential work assignment, is that I think everybody knows surface percolation, infiltration from the surface has significant hurdles in the Indian Wells Valley, in the Indian Wells Basin. There's some opportunities in some specific areas that have been looked at, and there's other areas that we want to at least look at and document what we know or don't know about these other areas, specifically around the recycled water project. It doesn't look promising, but it's very, very important that this authority documents the evaluations that have been done and the direction the authority's going, along with full technical input. So as they go through the evaluation and documentation of work that's been done in some of these areas that really are not really conducive to surface percolation. We've got evaporation, we've got geologic structure, we got clay layers, we got all kinds of things creating hurdles for surface percolation. But as we go through the technical evaluation, we want to get full buy-in from all of the technical people and get it documented so that when we move on, we don't look back as to what we may or may not have looked at. And I want to thank Phil for bringing this up, Phil Hall, because Phil was one of the persons that was adamant about making sure we look at this, because it is a very well-known, well-used technology, but there's some specific restrictions, concerns in this area that need to be looked at. In the other areas, there's already work been done in the promising areas. This evaluation, Steve will talk about it. This evaluation will look at those, bring those up to speed, document those other studies, and then talk about whether or not
and get agreement with all the technical people whether or not additional work is warranted. Whether we should do some additional drilling, whether we should do some exploration, whether we should do pilot demonstration. So that's the reason why we're putting this out there. This work is supportive of both the recycled water program that we're already working on and supportive of the imported water project that we're going to be working on bringing imported water to the basin. So the information gathered here will be used for both of those projects and part of the budget that's already been approved by the board, some of the 2020 budget to look at both of those projects. So with that, I'm sorry I talked so much, too much, but Steve Reich will walk through the work that's been done. And as I say, Steve has had a lot of conversations with technical folks up there who have provided excellent input. So Steve, if you would, go ahead and we'll get the PowerPoint up.
Yeah, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Going through? Great. Well, Steve, I think you covered a lot of it, and we're right at the throes of the beginning of the study, and I think Steve really focused on a lot of the important aspects of that, and that is, we want to make sure that we build upon the information that's already been established and already been prepared both by the city as well as in the area there. So I was fortunate enough to be able to get some really good comments back from the TAC on the initial study or the initial work plan that I had put out earlier last month. I did incorporate those into the study, and I wanted to, really make sure that everybody understands that as we go forward, if we go forward with this project, we will continue to work with the TAC and those people to make sure that we do incorporate all the known information and assess what's out there. I do want to kind of take a step backwards, though, and really kind of build upon what Steve said. And I think the importance, and this is why I introduced this in the beginning, was that we wanted to do a phased approach. I think it's a much more taking a stepwise approach to really, doing this reconnaissance level study, which really is based on looking at existing data before we start going out there and really doing new investigations or field work or anything that's really going to start to, I think, expand this. So I really am looking forward to looking at areas that have not been identified, determining what those constraints are, and then presenting that in this phase 1 reconnaissance level study. So fortunately, we were able to release that revised proposal going back to my conversations with the TAC members and the people of knowledge up there. That was released earlier this week. It's basically incorporating those comments. It had a slight variation to the change in budget, I think about $1,000 or $2,000. So the budget right now is $60,500. And I know I hope that people have had a chance to look at that. But certainly I'm available to answer any questions you might have about the specifics of what's included in that study.
So do you have any other information you want to share with us right now, Steve, or I'm going to bring it to public comment and then we'll open it up to the board for comments?
I think we're pretty much that's where, since the last time we met in February, that's what's taken place and that's where we are. So
okay,
no, that's where we are.
Okay, so at this time, let's go ahead and open up item number item number 8 to public comment. Okay, caller, go ahead.
Yes, this is Renee Westelusk.
Go ahead, Renee.
Okay, I just want to know what actually is going to be done with the $60,500 if you're just going back over pre-existing information. Can he please give more specifics on that? What is actually going to be entailed in going through existing data? And
sure.
Is there nothing that's going to be done in the field to go back over existing data, et cetera? Thank you.
Sure. No, I appreciate your comment, and maybe I didn't characterize it very well. We're not going to go back. We're going to use existing data to characterize the areas that are known and have already been previously studied, so that we do not spend effort, time, and money in those areas. Rather, we will document those areas, publish the results from that area, but the preliminary investigation will include looking at soils information, topography information, groundwater and geochemistry in other areas of the basin that have not been previously studied. So I think your point is very well taken. It's not the purpose of the study is not to redo what's done before. It's rather to document those areas and report on those findings, spending very little time doing that, and rather looking at existing published data sets. So, for instance, the USDA publishes soils maps, and there are information out there that we want to incorporate, the geology, the groundwater, what we've learned about the basin in the last 5 years in terms of the impact of hydrogeology and geology in areas that we don't know. So no, I hope I've answered your questions, but no, we will not be redoing work that's been previously done. Rather, we will be using that as a basis or a foundation for those areas, and then expanding under this reconnaissance survey using data sets that are publicly available from governmental agencies.
Okay, any other public comment? Okay, seeing no further public comment, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion and questions.
Director Rotorua here. The Water District has been a proponent for recycled water for a long time and will continue to be. Unfortunately, there is no sponsor for the current project, and it's not funded. I don't believe we should be spending money that we don't actually have. I'd like to put my Water District hat on. It's not easy to see, but it's there, okay? Now, I think I stated back in January that the Water District would be happy to fund a wastewater recycling program. I am disappointed, personally, we do not have an agreement in place to do so. Such an agreement would be very beneficial to 30,000 people in this valley. So again, I think the first thing we need to do is find funding for the program. Water District is willing and able to step up to the plate. Thank you.
Tim Mittenauer.
No real comment.
Director Vallejo?
I don't have any additional comments.
Director Peters?
I have nothing to add at this time.
I just have one question. I think we may have lost Steve, but if you're still on, Steve, Steve, can you still hear me? Mr. Wright?
Yes, I have to get off mute.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, I just have one question. Is this study looking at the overall costs too of percolation and in regards to the other options that we have for the recycled water?
Cost is not the primary thing we're looking at, or will be looked at. Basically, this evaluation is a technical evaluation. I'm still on. Is a technical evaluation that is intended to be used for both the recycled water program we're working on, where we will look at cost and alternatives, because the goal of the recycled water program that I'll provide an update a little later on today. The recycled water program that we have a scope out for review and comments coming back in on, that recycled water program scope and budget will look at all of the alternative uses and cost effectiveness of those alternatives. But in order to evaluate the cost effectiveness of surface percolation, this technical information is essential. So yes, this will be a part of a cost evaluation in the recycled water program. It will also be used to support a cost evaluation in the imported water study that we'll be working on. So specifically part of this, we'll probably have some cost information as part of this, but it really will be focused on providing that information to two projects, recycled water and imported water.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my objection has nothing to do with the technical aspect of what's going on. I think Steve is right. Technically, the program as stated is reasonable. The problem is over the last 3 years, we've gotten ahead of ourselves regarding funding. I think if you look at the audits from the last 2 years, it's very obvious we're spending money we don't have. We need to correct that before we jump into something that we can't afford. I think we need to find a funding alternative, and I'm suggesting that the water district be the one that be in the forefront of that. Thank you.
So I would just like to add, I feel that the project and the data that's going to be gleaned from it is vital to other aspects and directions that we're moving. So I think it's something that should be moved forward with. But so if we don't have any other questions from other board members at this time, I would say let's go ahead and see if we can get a motion for a vote.
I'll motion to approve.
Who was that?
Phil Peters, Director Peters. And I'll second it.
Hey, this is John Vallejo. I'm not sure if I'm having trouble on my end, but I'm hearing almost nothing often when people are speaking from the dais.
We have a motion, John, and we're looking for a second. So I hear no other comments at this time, so I'll second it.
Vice Chair Rotora,
No.
Chairman Heyman,
Aye.
Director Peters,
Aye.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Itnire.
Aye.
I did receive John's email. Director Vallejo, just a reminder to speak in the microphone, and when you turn your head, they're not able to hear anything you guys are saying.
Okay, moving on to item 9, board consideration and possible approval of variance request per ordinance number 04-20 by Jay Freeman. This will be presented by Jeff Helsley.
Yeah, this is Steve. I think either Jeff or Joseph will be on. I think they're on. I'll just get out in front. We actually had two we were looking at. One is still being looked at, but we are ready to bring one variance request with a staff report to the board. Jeff or Joseph, are you on?
Hi, Steve. This is Joseph. I'm on.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Good afternoon, everyone. This is John with Stetson Engineering. I'll be presenting an item on behalf of Helsley. So the purpose of this item is for to consider and potentially approve of a meter variance received by Mr. Jay Freeman. As you'll recall, at the November board meeting, the board amended Ordinance 1-20 to include provisions for pumpers to apply for a variance request, exempting them from the requirements of Meter Ordinance 1- regarding installation of flow meters and periodic meter accuracy testing, provided that they met one of which is if the pumper is a small mutual or co-op well owner that can demonstrate pumping volumes less than 10 acre-feet per year, and the other criteria is pumpers that are using groundwater for solely residential purposes that can demonstrate economic hardship as a result of having to comply with the meter requirements. Since our last February meeting, staff has received and reviewed one meter variance request. This is from a Mr. J. Freeman, who submitted his variance request from the provision of Articles 2 and 3 of the meter ordinance regarding meter specs, installation, and accuracy testing. Mr. Freeman has submitted his variance request on behalf of his co-op of well owners, which consists of 4 parties that jointly operate a well parcels located in Ridgecrest. His variance letter indicated that each party has water meter installed on each main water lines connecting to each property, but it's staff's understanding that the well itself is not equipped with a master. Mr. Freeman's variance letter provided historical total water use by your co-op as laid out in your report that has been provided in your board package. I should note that Mr. Freeman has registered his co-op well with the authority and has paid his portion of the authority's extraction fee for the period from May 2020 through January of 2021. And over this 9-month period, total extraction equal approximately 2.25 acre-feet, which is less than the 10 acre-feet criteria that's discussed in the meter ordinance. It's also staff's understanding that the other 3 members of Mr. Freeman's co-op have self-reported themselves as de minimis extractors, which would mean that they're exempt from the requirements of Ordinance 0120. So with that being said, it's staff's recommendation to the board that Mr. Freeman's variance.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, we'll bring it back for public comment. Do we have any public comment for item number 9? Okay, seeing no public comment, we'll bring it back to the board for questions or discussion.
This is Director Torra. I do have some questions for clarification. Do we know how many wells are involved in this variance?
It's our understanding that this co-op only operates one well, and it's shared by the 4 party members of the co-op.
Okay. And where is the well located?
The well is located in Ridgecrest. We have a physical address for the well on the well registration form that Mr. Freeman submitted.
Is it's located on one particular parcel? I'm assuming it's on Mr. Freeman's parcel? Correct or not?
Director, I don't know that information off the top of my head, but I can split it up right now.
Okay. Well, let's, for the moment, assume that it is on Mr. Freeman's property. Can you explain to me how the 3 other co-op members self-report themselves as de minimis extractors?
I'll refer to Bill to answer.
I'm sorry, did you hear the question? I'm perhaps not speaking into my mic properly.
No, I did hear, Director. I think I would refer to Council Bill Hall to answer the
question. Chairman Hayden, if I may, this question was answered, back, 3 years ago when we first adopted the first GSP fee in our frequently asked questions. what we have here is we have a statute in Sigma which says if 2 acre foot is being used by somebody for residential purposes out of their well, that they're considered de minimis. If you are on what's called a well sharing agreement, that's 4 wells or less, you share the ownership of the well. And because of that, you could have a well that is serving 4 people, 4 homes, and have 4 homes that are de minimis coming from that one well. You could also have a situation where 3 of those homes, 3 of those connections to that well are residential de minimis, and 1 is a commercial business, say a gas station, which I think is what we have at one in Inyokern. Might be wrong though, but that's an example. So in that situation, because 1 is a commercial, it wouldn't meet the de minimis requirement, and it's subject to the fees. Whereas the other 3, although they're on the exact same well, are subject to the definition of de minimis in Sigma. It's a definition that we have inherited. We didn't come up with this definition. Another situation that you can occur, which I believe is the situation we have here, where somebody is actually reporting that they're using more than 2 acre foot. And, I think he should be commended for acknowledging that he's using more than 2 acre foot, although it be a little bit, because we really don't have much of an ability to regulate de minimis users unless we are pretty adamant and confined by just visual inspection that they're using way more than 2 acre foot. It's part of the problem of not having meters on de minimis that we've inherited from the law. So I think that answers Director Ratora's question, but I can go into more detail if you'd like.
Thank you for that. I would like to go back to my question, is that how are the other 3 co-op members reporting themselves as de minimis?
Director Rator, if I may, this is Chairman Haven. It says here that the other 3 users, I'll just read it. The variance request letter indicated that each party has a water meter installed on their main water line to measure monthly use. So
yeah, I read
they
that.
have meters to determine that.
No, I appreciate that.
So I'm not sure.
No, I was wondering what paperwork, what's the legal manner of how a person self-reports themselves as de minimis?
Director, this is Montoya again. The well registration form that Mr. Freeman submitted had a few annotations that describe the other 3 users as de minimis.
Okay. It's my understanding that it is the well that is either de minimis or not de minimis. In this particular case, the data shows that in years 17, 18, 19, and 20, more than 2 acre feet was pumped in each one of those years. And from that standpoint, based upon the legal definition of a de minimis well, which is someone who uses or extracts, less than 2 acre feet per year, it would seem to me that the extractor is non-de minimis and should pay the pumping fee.
Chairman Heyman, if I may, this is Phil Hall again.
Yes,
the definition is not focused on the well, Chairman Ratora. It's focused on user. And does a user own a well? In a well sharing agreement, the 4 users all own the well, and their own use is what matters. The definition in Sigma doesn't say a well, it says use, which is probably a bad statute and a bad way of writing a statute, but that's what the legislature has given us. So we have to define that based on that. The next issue you have is once you go above 4 wells, you enter what's called small mutuals. It's kind of a general definition of what's out there.
It's because you cannot have a well serving more than 4 before the ownership of the well has to be taken over by an entity, which is usually a nonprofit cooperative mutual benefit corporation. That's usually how you would title those. So in this instance, it's not, again, not the well, it's the use and the user, which is something we've put in the frequently asked questions on the first GSP fee and have dealt with in the past. I know it seems like you would think it would be the well, but it's actually the user, and you have this weird section, I should say weird section, you've had this section of law we've had for 100 years about well sharing agreements. So that's how we've gotten here.
Okay, in that case, I have no more questions. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay, hearing no other questions, so we'll bring it back for a motion.
I'll motion to approve.
We have a motion. Looking for a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Vice Chair Ratora,
Aye.
Chairman Heyman,
Aye.
Director Peters,
Aye.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Itmeyer.
Aye.
Okay, moving to item number 10, Water Resources Manager Report.
Once again, thank you, Chairman Hammond. Wow, this is working very well. The PowerPoint's already up. I have several PowerPoints to go through, and they updated. They're included in the under the Water Resources Manager's report in the agenda packet A through G. I will go fairly quickly, but I try not to rush through them too much individually. Only item E, I believe, will be covered by Steve Reich, who's you've already heard from today. Steve will report on our work on the Navy Coastal Royalty Fund. He's been doing an excellent job working on that and working with the participants on securing that funding and processing the paperwork for some funding for the authority through that royalty fund. So the first PowerPoint has to do with an update on Proposition 1. You all recall we got a very significant grant, funding grant under the Prop 1 grant opportunity. We are now working through our invoices. The latest invoice, prior invoice, I guess, invoice 8A, which covered the period of work of July through September of 2020. The total payment request for that period is almost $138,000. After a discussion with DWR, that's the amount that we requested payment for that period. It was submitted back in November under the guidelines of submitting within 2 months of the end of the period. It included progress reports for both Prop 1 and Prop 68, which I'll talk about in just a second. The first Prop 68 were all submitted. We received some minor comments from DWR back in January, addressed those comments, resubmitted, and then we got some additional minor comments back from DWR on March 2nd. Those are being addressed and being submitted back to DWR for payment. So we don't see the issues. We're working closely with Jennifer at DWR. It's just a matter of processing, and we should be seeing payment on invoice 8A. Invoice 9A has also been prepared. It covers the period October through December. Total payment after retention that we submitted was almost $128,000 to be received. It was submitted at the end of February, the 26th, actually, a Friday before the end of the month. Also included progress reports for both Prop 1 and Prop 68. We have not heard back from DWR on that invoice yet, so we may have some comments. Next PowerPoint, please. Prop 68, I think it's up. This is the Prop 68 update. You recall that we got a grant funding on Prop 68 for about $300,000. Most of that grant was for past work, and most of that grant we've collected on because we made a very large submittal in our first invoice to DWR. Based on DWR's direction, we combined Prop 68 with our Prop 1, so we only submit one invoice. So again, as part of invoice 8B, which I just described, July through September, total payment after retention under this grant is a little over $3,000. As I've mentioned, we've collected most of the money already. It was submitted again November 30th. It was approved by DWR. We're awaiting payment. I just got word from Don Zadiva that we did receive payment, so that has been paid. That's an update to this slide. We have received payment on that from DWR. 9B, which covers October through December 2020. Total payment there is a little over $4,000. That was submitted at the end of February. Again, we have received no comments on the invoice yet from DWR, but we're not seeing a problem. I just thought about this as I was getting ready for this presentation. I'll make a note that at the April meeting, I'll bring back an accounting for Prop 68 showing how much was awarded and how much we've received. There's a retention, a 10% retention on each of the payments we received. So I will bring back an accounting to let you know where we're at, what's left to be received from DWR on this Prop 68 grant that the authority received. So the next PowerPoint is the new Prop 68 grant funding application that we submitted. I don't want to go to too much detail because the news isn't good on this, but this was for implementation of GSPs for critically overdraft basins. Certainly, we fall into that category, and we should be prominent in that category. However, as we've been describing earlier on the work we're trying to get done, we don't have a lot of very expensive infrastructure type, very costly implementation projects on the board right now for the Groundwater Authority. Knowing that, we did not want to miss this opportunity. There's two phases to this grant funding opportunity. This is phase one. Key to this grant funding opportunity is that the minimum now, was $2 million. Maximum was $5 million. As we always do, our goal was to try and pull together an application for the maximum, the full $5 million. So what we submitted was an application that included the studies and the work that we're talking about right now, recycled water work, the percolation study, imported water studies that we're going to be doing for imported water, the work we're doing with Capital Corps. All of those were included. Those studies did not get close to the $2 million. Stepping back, we talked to our staff team about what the best alternative was and decided that the city's wastewater treatment facility improvement and expansion, is certainly an important project for the Groundwater Authority and the water supply of the basin. So we included in the application the expansion of the wastewater treatment facility being done by the city. In the application, we also included that arrangements would be made between the authority and the city, the participants in the project, and the funding to make sure that the benefits of a grant allocation to that project would be passed on to the Groundwater Authority, the producers, the stakeholders in the basin under the authority. So that was our qualification to try and get the wastewater treatment facility expansion included in the grant funding, in which case we applied for the full amount, $5 million. So that's where we were at. We understood going in that it wasn't a totally clean application for grant funding, but we certainly don't want to miss the opportunity, and we certainly don't want DWR to ignore this Groundwater Authority. So, update on that. We did receive word last week that there were 15 eligible applications submitted under this grant funding opportunity. Over $70 million in grant funds were requested. Only 26 million was available in this round of funding, so over 2.5 times the amount available was applied for. The initial, I didn't have this at the time I prepared this this PowerPoint, but we just saw this week that the initial award list did not include the Groundwater Authority, so we were not included in the initial identification of awards. We are in the process right now, just so the board knows, which we would always do, is doubling back with DWR to find out a couple of things. Is there scoring sheets available for this, just so we see how the scoring works? And is there certain things that weren't included that need to be included? Double back to make sure that this is done properly. We've done this before, and we have accomplished a reevaluation by DWR. So I don't know where that'll take us, but we are going to follow back up on this. Certainly, some of the projects that we put in are very much implementation of the GSP, but recalling what I mentioned, the minimum award was $2 million. The straight implementation projects that are included in our GSP right now, in our GSP that's submitted to DWR, the implementation projects that we are doing, which are these studies on recycled water, imported water, did not come close to the minimum amount, $2 million. That may have had something to do with it. But as soon as we know something, we will let you know. So that's the new Prop 68 application. Moving on to the Recycled Water Program update. This was authorized to proceed at the last meeting, at the January meeting, actually. We're working through scope, budget, schedule, things that we want to evaluate. A little bit of discussion earlier on the percolation study ties right to this. But the big picture here is, and working with the stakeholders, certainly with the city who has the recycled wastewater, who is expanding the plant, and certainly with other stakeholders, the water district, sounds like they may want to participate in the project. We're certainly available to that. We'll be working through the TAC. The process right now is we have prepared a scope of work on what we want to evaluate for the recycled water project. Primary goal here, folks, is simply to determine what is the level of treatment that is needed to put the recycled water that's going to be produced from this plant, to put this recycled water to the very best beneficial use for the basin, to reduce the groundwater production and reduce the need to import water to this basin. That's what we're trying to accomplish. So that's what this study will evaluate. A lot of different things are included in the study. There are some key areas that we want to look at. The percolation will provide information on surface replenishment, which we are certainly have our concerns about because of the geology out in this basin. But we will certainly be looking at direct uses for recycled water. We'll certainly be looking at possibly sills, a very good direct use that reduces direct pumping if we got a direct use there. And we're certainly going to be looking at direct injection and additional treatment requirements and regulatory requirements that need to be met in order to do depercolation. So we have released that our first draft of the scope of work for this recycled water program evaluation. We have received comments back. We are incorporating those comments. We will be releasing the draft final scope of work to all of the participants. And then at that point, we will start pulling together a technical team that will start looking at actually implementing the recycled water program. Concurrent with that, because it needs to be done anyway, we have already started on documenting the existing recycled water program that the city has, both treatment and uses, documenting the planned recycled water program that the city is planning to do regardless of what the authority does. They're planning to expand the treatment facility. They have planned uses for certain water. We want to document that. And then the real evaluation will be, what do we need to do beyond that? What is the authority going to do? What is the authority going to pick up and run with on that water supply to make sure we have the highest beneficial use? So that's an update on the recycled water project. I'll move on to item E, which is the Navy COSO royalty fund. And I hope Steve Reich is still on the line. Yes, I see he's still on. I think Steve Wright's done a lot of work on this. Excellent work working with the key folks. Steve, would you do this one, please?
Sure, absolutely. Let me get caught up here. I'm looking at. So I wanted to first describe what we've done with regards to the FY20 and the Rose Valley project. I think most of you are familiar with that. So back in February, we went out to the site with the Bureau of Land Management and with one of the drillers that I think is come in with the best price. So we got him on the ground. So we had boots on the ground. We went out. We confirmed the sites. We confirmed the needs for biologists. We looked at the laydown area and how this will all proceed. So it was very successful. BLM was supportive, and they are now working on wrapping up the SF 299 form, which provides us right away, as well as the environmental category exclusion for the 3 sites that we'll be looking at. So we expect to have that during the week of March 22nd from the BLM. We're wrapping that up with the final bid, as well as with the backup bids from other contractors, and expect to provide that to the Navy in very early April. Based on my conversations, my understanding is we can receive that money before the end of the fiscal year and spend it afterwards in the fall. So that's where we are right now with the Rose Valley going forward. I can move on to FY22, but if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer that. So in terms of FY22, we've had a list of projects that were circulated out to the TAC members and other interested parties on Monday. We've been putting that together and looking at specific projects that will meet the sustainability, resiliency, and reliability goals of the security, water and security interest of the Navy on how the COSA funds can be spent. So we're looking at making sure that we include a final list. From that list, we will then pick 2 projects that we believe will meet those criteria that have been established by the Navy for the expenditure of those funds, and develop the 1391 documents. And we're looking at the middle of April to provide those final funding documents to the Navy for their review. So it's going to be the end of March and early April. We'll be very busy in putting those projects together and moving those forward.
Thank you very much, Steve. Just to add one quick thing, as you recall, Commander Benson is very active in this process, and Steve's been working closely with Commander Benson to make sure, because last year we got kind of a little bit late notice and coordination on what we needed to do to get things done, and we got earlier notice this time, and Steve is working closely with Commander Benson. I think we're on a good schedule to make sure that that this gets pulled together for FY22.
Okay, well, this is Tom Bakauskas at the Bureau of Land Management. I talked with my realty staff. Your F299 is not complete for us to proceed with the right-of-way. Site selection was an issue.
Okay. I'll have to talk to my staff member. I wasn't aware of that. So thank you for that update.
Okay, thank you, Steve. I will move on to item F, which is the GSP plan project number 4, the Shallow Well Impacts Mitigation Program. As you can recall, that we brought this to the board meeting last month on the 10th of February, and we're proceeding with the work task with both the funding toward developing the program plan, the mitigation program plan. And we have some funding set aside for the outreach, identification, and initial evaluation of impacted wells. We did put together, since the last meeting, we put together a program outline, an outline of how we're going to approach developing the program. That's been reviewed by the TAC. The the staff team, posted on the website after we got their comments and modified based on the comments we received, and it's been posted on the website. So our work plan is set for the program. In addition to that, one of the things that we committed to do was get a report form prepared for folks that own shallow wells that they believe have been impacted based upon the criteria the board set for impacted wells. We did put together a report form. Again, ran that through our staff team, legal counsels, and ran it through the TAC. And now that has been finalized. We got comments back. It's been redrafted based upon comments, and it's out again. We've allowed additional time for comments to come in, which I believe is March 24th, allowing additional comments to come in on that form. When we receive those comments, we'll finalize it and bring it back to the board at the April meeting, anticipating approval of the form to be posted on the website so that folks will have the opportunity to look at the form, evaluate the potential impacts of their wells, and then submit an impact form to the GA and to us, the Water Resources Manager. So that's the status of the mitigation program. I think we did through April. I think the draft form that's out has been provided to the board, and I think to the public too. If you don't have it, check with myself or April. We can get you a copy of the draft form if you'd like to see it. So that's item F. Item G, request for the Navy from the Navy for their 2020 pumping. As everybody's aware, we've all been through the process. We're looking at a replenishment fee this year. In order to have a replenishment fee this year, we have to figure out what we are doing with the sustainable yield allotment that has been determined by the TAC and by the board, by us and by the board, what we're going to do with that sustainable yield. Under the plan that has been prepared and reviewed in great detail, the first allocation of that allotment, I should say, of that water of 7650 is Federal Reserve rights and go to the Navy. So the approach right now is we had to wait till the end of the year so we could get all the information assembled. But the request has gone out to the Navy for the 2020 pumping. We do get it in another format. We have from our hydrogeology work that we're doing on basin management. We get that pumping in a separate format, but we want to make sure that this is the formal request and we have formal information because it's a fairly important task we're working on to use the pumping from the Navy. And then based upon 2020 pumping and based upon the allotment plan that has been presented to the board and approved by the board, we would then provide allotments of the remaining sustainable yield to the other pumpers so they'll know how much water they can pump from the basin without a replenishment fee, and the pumping beyond their allotment would be subject to the fee. So that letter was prepared, reviewed by the staff team, reviewed by legal counsel, and has been sent to the Navy. I have received responses back indicating that it's been received and that they are working on providing that information. Our goal would be to get that information back from the Navy, if it works out, to bring back the allotment based upon Navy usage in 2020, bring that back to the board at the April meeting for board approval. So that's that item. And with that, myself, Steve Reich, still on the line, I believe. We are available to answer any questions.
Okay, at this point, we'll bring it for public comment on the Water Resource Manager's report.
And we are working on providing that information. Our goal would be to get that information back from the Navy, if it works out, to bring back the allotment based upon Navy usage in 2020, bring that back to the board at the April meeting for board approval. So that's that item. And with that, myself, Steve Reich, still on the line, I believe. We are available to answer any questions. Okay, at this point, we'll bring it.
We're having a little technical glitch here, and I think we're good now. Okay, caller, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Fat. I would like to submit comments on behalf of Mojave Pistachio. I'm sorry, there's a lot of echoing and feedback.
We can hear you pretty clearly.
I'll mute too to help.
Okay, as long as you can hear me, that's fine. Okay. So my first comment will be on agenda item 10F, the domestic shallow well questionnaire. It's a mix of questions and comments, but the first is at least what was provided this morning from the board in the board packet revision. The legal disclaimer as drafted and formatted seems like it would present a roadblock to data collection. And I think that's because it precedes any ask for any information about the shallow wells. So I guess my first question is, will there be additional outreach to educate those who will be receiving this questionnaire so that they understand what this questionnaire is going to be for? And second, it looks like questions 6 and 7 of the questionnaire are the heart of the data collection effort. But it looks like a multiple choice question. I just know I was confused when reviewing it, so I wanted to know if there will be a way for those filling out the questionnaire to provide more comprehensive answers, specifically to questions 6 and 7. And I mean, I suggest that it could be in electronic form, but I just wanted to present those 2 questions to those drafting the questionnaire.
If I can respond, Chairman Heyman, yes, the intent here is to get information, and the intent here is, if necessary, to have it be collaborative back and forth. So yes, any method in which the person filling out the report form is comfortable for them to get information to us, whether it's electronically, whether they bring it by the city and drop it off at April, we're open to. We're just trying to get information so we can access it and then probably prepare a short evaluation report once the information is in, and we've collaboratively determined that we have enough to do an initial evaluation. So yes.
Okay, and is this the only outreach for the questionnaire? Like, will the questionnaire contain all the information needed to understand what it's asking for, or will there be preceding outreach before the questionnaire is delivered?
I'll do the best I can to answer that. We are accepting comments through March 24th. Depending on the comments we receive, we will modify and make any changes to it. So when you talk about outreach, one of the things I think about is the authority looking at putting up a billboard or a newspaper ad or anything like that? Mm-hmm. I don't have any knowledge of that. The intent would be to get folks who have felt like they've been impacted, and presumably, I mean, it's important that they're already participating in the groundwater authority operation, so they're aware of what the authority's doing, even though they may be de minimis well owners. We still need to have information on registration and those types of things, which has not been pursued. So we're in a little bit of a gray area here on outreach, but anybody participating in what the authority is doing should be aware of what's going on. But I'm not aware of any additional real outreach to try and go out and look for impacted wells.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to read some comments into the record based on documents that were circulated this morning to supplement the board packet. So this would be on agenda item 10G on the request for annual groundwater extraction from China, the Navy's China Lake. So the letter looks like it has some inconsistencies with respect to how the Navy's water right is treated. The letter appears to be written with a tone that demonstrates that it cannot require the Navy to provide any information. But at the same time, it says that the authority cannot limit or regulate the Navy's interest, yet it creates an allotment scheme based on other users to extract the unused portion of the Navy's water right interest. So while we disagree with the sustainable yield estimate, we are concerned with the legal inconsistencies with respect to how the Navy's water right is treated, particularly how it's described in this letter. Even assuming the sustainable yield is correct, the allotment system flows from it and is dependent on the Navy's voluntary cooperative participation. So should the Navy refuse to provide production information in any year, the GSP would fall apart, and so would a predictable, sustainable management of the entire basin. So with that said, we just want to point out that this letter just reiterates the fact that if the Navy doesn't participate, the GSP and allotment system would appear to fail in that year, and just wanted to raise that concern to the board. If that's true, that what position will the board be in if the Navy does not provide its production information?
Would the board like me to comment on that, since it's a legal question?
Yes, please.
The way Sigma is designed, well, the way division of power is set up in this country, Sigma understands that the federal government has jurisdiction over decisions involving federally reserved water for military bases, and that was baked into Sigma. So we are doing what Sigma compels us to do, which is attempting to acquire that information cooperatively. We don't really have a second option.
To help maybe alleviate some fears in this area, as I mentioned, we do get information in our data collection, hydrologic information. The data we have shows pumping by the Navy to be consistent with our prior estimates to these previous few years, the last couple of years. So we don't have a concern right now in this area, at least for 2020.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think the purpose of just me speaking was to just provide those comments in the record, but I appreciate the response in terms of the Navy's current cooperation. Thank you.
Okay, did you have any other comments, Kimberly? Oh, okay. Okay, next caller, go ahead.
Yes, this is Renee Westelusk. Just commenting on the part of the shallow well mitigation program where it says $20,000 for outreach, identification, and initial evaluation. The report form, is that going to be used to identify and initially evaluate which wells will get help?
Renee, this is Steve. This is Steve. The answer is yes. That, and as I mentioned, possibly a collaborative effort. There may be a back and forth to collect the information. Whatever information that is collected, the intent would be for the Water Resources Manager to prepare at least an interim, a preliminary evaluation of what the report form says about the claims being made about impacts. That work would then be reviewed by the staff team, and certainly before it goes to the board, be reviewed maybe by the well owner to see where we're at. But ultimately, anything that would be done would have to be approved by the board.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Any other callers? Okay, seeing no other public comment, we'll bring it back to any questions from the board for Steve or Jeff.
This is Director Rotora. Just for clarification, can somebody enlighten me regarding the GSP and the Navy allocation or allotment or whatever we're calling it? I wasn't aware, I didn't think that the Navy allotment was actually in the GSP. I thought it was only in the replenishment fee documentation. Could somebody enlighten me there a little bit?
It's contained in the safe yield report that we adopted, and what it says is that the safe yield of the basin is likely to be less than the Federal Reserve right, but that we recognize that the base is only currently using a set amount, and therefore the balance of the safe yield will be allocated for Navy uses according to a chart that was provided. In order to derive those numbers, we need to understand what the Navy uses in a given year, because the Navy gets to use it first itself, and then whatever's left over is put to Navy uses.
Okay, the question was, is that safe yield report part of the GSP then?
My recollection is that we adopted the allocations I just described as a separate report.
Okay, that's what I was thinking as well. Okay, thank you.
Chairman Heyman, if I may, this is Phil Hall. I would say the report is an ancillary document to the GSP. I'd also say that they're not allocations, because people think allocations means water rights. They're allotments. And the basis that we divided that up is also based on a Navy letter where it sort of told us what it needed water to be used for. So the Navy has sent us a couple of letters. This would be the second of the Navy's letter that we received in 2019. I think it was June or July. The letter that sent us down this path was their February letter, which in essence told us that we could not regulate the Navy in any way, shape, or form, and they would not waive that sovereign immunity. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay, we'll move along to item number 11. Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Jeff. So item number 11, General Manager's Report.
Yes, Chairman Heyman and members of the board, I'll start off this section. As you know, last month the board approved the contract with Regional Government Services, RGS, to take over the general management administration of the Groundwater Authority. Since that last meeting, staff has been working with RGS to make that happen, and I'm here to introduce today our new general manager for the Groundwater Authority, which is Carol Thomas Kiefer. She'll be taking over this point in time to do a short introduction of herself and to introduce her key staff. Carol, do you mind going forward? I believe you're muted, Carol.
I knew I would do that. Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here with all of you today. I am Carol Thomas Kiefer. I'll be serving as your general manager through RGS, and I have about 22 years in groundwater management, working primarily with the main San Gabriel Basin, and working additionally with other basins in the Los Angeles County area. I also have about 13 years experience working with water utilities, have my D4 T2 water certification, so kind of an all-around water person. Pleased to be working on this project. I think it's really important for the community, for the area. I also want to take a moment to introduce a couple of other members of our RGS team. One of them you already know, and that's April, and we're so happy to have her working, moving over to RGS and working on the Groundwater Authority with us. And then the other person I want you to meet is Jeff Keiss. He's listening as well. He's going to be our finance expert, and we're looking forward collectively to providing some great administrative services for you. With that, I will move on to the reports here. There is a February financial report in your packet. The only thing I'm going to say with regard to this report is in the future, I think you're going to see things done a little differently. April, Jeff, and I will be working to kind of redo how the financials are presented. And I'm hoping we might do that in April, certainly by the May meeting. We hope to have some revised presentation on your financial reporting. Let's see. You also have in your report a memo from Capital Core Group on their activities. They continue to monitor federal and state legislation on our behalf. Some highlights, I think, is they're starting to talk to members of Congress about the 2021 National Defense Authorization Act and how we might be able to fit into that, including securing some programmatic funding for the Defense Community Infrastructure Program, and hoping to see if there's some potential funding sources for authorization of the wastewater treatment plant. As far as the DCIP funds go, $60 million, they report, were appropriated for 2021, and they expect that there will be guidance and application procedures available in April, and probably a call for applications in around May and June. So we look forward in participating in that process. Additional details are in the packet in that report. We have a brief report on our severely disadvantaged communities programs. Primarily, our team is working on performing water system leak audits. They're trying to identify leaks and water losses for these systems. They've been working in various areas, Argus, South Trona, Inyo Kern. So again, another report on their activities contained in the packet. We do not have a specific report on delinquent accounts for this month. We've been kind of busy working on our transition here on administration, but we'll be working on that in particular, I think, in the coming month. But as far as the well registration update, we do have 115 wells registered among 55 pumpers now, and 134 wells registered as de minimis. Additionally, interesting to note that our total pumping fee payments collected in January was $58,903.82, which is $3,900, little over $3,900 more than what was forecasted for that month. So we're doing a little better in that area. And with that, that's my report.
Okay, thank you, Carol. At this time, we'll open up to public comment on the General Manager's report. Okay, seeing no public comment, we'll bring it back to board for any comments or discussion. Well, we're going to go back to public comment because we do have a call coming in, so let's wait just a second here. Okay, caller, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to know that $58,000, was that just for the pumping fee, or is that also the replenishment fee?
That was a pumping fee payment.
Do we have a total for the replenish?
I don't have those numbers handy. I'll defer to Ron or April on that.
Yeah, there won't be any replenishment fee funds until at least March. The Water District is taking their $9,000 that's owed to them by the GA out of the first 2.5 months of the replenishment fee.
Okay. Any other public comment? Caller, go ahead.
Hi, again, this is Kimberly Lisa on behalf of Mojave Pistachio. I just had a question about the invoices that were submitted along with the board packet. I didn't see one for Stetson, and I was wondering if there was an invoice to be included so that we can review it next to the February report.
I don't know, April's on, Ron, I think we're late getting it done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we just didn't receive it.
Yeah, I think that was right. That was our fault.
Okay, not a problem. Is it possible to have that supplemented in the next board packet, or just maybe supplemented in the next week or so?
Kimberly, this is April. The invoice will be made available in the April board packet.
April? Okay, great. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing no further public comment, now we'll bring it back to the board for comments and discussion. Any comments from the board?
This is Director Rotora. I appreciate the comment, Carol's comment on the finance report. I understand that we're in transition, and as much as I really want the Water District to get out of the administrative business of the GA, I also want to make sure that there is a reasonable handoff on the financial report.
I can't hear very well.
Yeah, me either.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better?
You have to get right up on it, Stan.
Is this better?
Much better.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Much better.
I guess my comment is that even though the Water District would like to get out of supporting the administration of the GA, we also don't want to hand over a can of worms regarding the finances to RGS. So if you need help and you need me to intervene, I'm sure Mr. Zadiba would be willing. I noticed he just left, but he will be willing to help, I think, in the transition because it's important that we have a good transition. We got a new budget in January of this year. And the part that I liked about it is it was broken down into 3 areas where we had a pumping fee budget, a replenishment fee budget, and then an overhead budget. And it was much easier to understand. And this thing, and I don't expect, by the way, a response because I know you're working on it, and I'm sure it's going to get better. This report sort of commingles all the stuff back together, and that's the reason that we pull it apart is so we could understand what was in the budget. And then the other comment on this particular sheet of paper is it doesn't mention the replenishment fee at all. So, but I'm sure you're all going to work on that. So anything that you can do is greatly appreciated. The finances is an area for the last 3 years that we've had some problems, and anything you can do to clear up where we are and where we're going would be greatly appreciated. A couple other things not related to your report. was a couple months ago, I had requested pumping data. The Water District reports to its board every month regarding how much water we pump. I'm sure DWR expects us to understand how much water we pump from our aquifer. And so I noticed it still isn't in the report, and I would like to have that added to either the admin report or the water management report somewhere. I don't care where. I just think it's important that we understand how much water we are pumping. Second of all, I had requested a accounting of the funds received from the modified pumping fee, starting where we had modified it, so we have some idea how much money that we had pulled in. There was a number given of $1.5 something million that the pumping fee was supposed to be for, and I'm trying to track that number. So if I could get that as part of either your report or the water management report, I don't care. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other further board comments? Okay, I think that concludes the general manager's report. Thank you, Carol. So at this time, we'll move to item 12, closing comments. We'll start with Director Rator. Do you have any closing comments?
Yes, I do have one. Thank you, Chairman. The city has opened up their attendance to the public. It's limited, but it does open it up to the public. My feeling is it's time. Since we use the same facility, there's no reason, since the city can open up to the public, do it on a first-come, first-served basis or whatever. But I'd like to see our public here so they can listen to us, see us, poke us in the chest if they really feel they need to, that kind of thing. So I'd like to make sure that we give consideration to doing and giving our public the same access that the city does. Thank you.
Director Edneier, any closing comments?
No comments.
Director Peters.
No comments here.
Director Vallejo.
None from me, thank you.
And none from myself. So with that, the next meeting will be April 14th, 2021. We're going to recess open session here and return to closed session. Do we want to take a 5-minute or 10-minute break?
This is April. I just want to make those who will be participating in the second closed session, I have sent you that WebEx information. So check your emails for it.
Got it.
Okay, is everybody good with a 5-minute break?
5 minutes.
Works for me. That's fine with me.
Sure.
Okay, let's just make it, it'll be 7 minutes. Let's make it, we'll start at 12:45.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And,
Bye, everybody.
okay, we are now reconvening open session. I am going to report out on the closed session. There was no reportable action from closed session. And with that, this meeting is now adjourned.